Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe. Here with me is my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
Well, I guess we also should extend a welcome to the men and women of the East, considering we have a few fans from there. So, hello and welcome to you as well. And if you're somewhere in the middle, off. We don't need you. I'm joking.
But we want you.
Okay, fine. I'm only joking.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to all of you. I hope everyone doesn't mind that little joke. Middle earth. Sorry, just a small dad joke between us. Anyways, chapter 18. Really, I don't think chapter is the right word with this book. Just to nitpick a little. Maybe it should be story 18 or book 18. Book seems more appropriate considering each of these tales. Well, I don't want to say this is an anthology, but this is a mythopoetic of a multitude of great tales. So, book 18 of the ruin of Beleriand and the fall of Fingolfin. Now, funny enough, that's the word that this book starts with. That said, Fingolfin is now High King of the Noldor. He's doing a great job. Everybody loves him. The kids love him, the women love him, the men love him, the elves love him, the elf lovers love him, the orcs love him. Well, maybe not the orcs, but everyone else loves him. Except for maybe Morgoth, who's probably thoroughly annoyed by him. Now, the siege of Angband is still going on, and the thing is, though, the siege is pretty incomplete. Fingolfin wants to kind of mount a proper, how do I put it, assault. But he's having a hard time selling the idea to a lot of other elves because, let the good times roll. But the trouble is, there's a dark cloud on the horizon, so to speak. Angrod and Agnor do understand where their dad is coming from and are in agreement with him. Oh wow, I can't believe I just praised Agnor. You know, the Barney Stinson who lacks the awesomeness of Barney Stinson. No, Agnor's not awesome. And if you got that joke, kudos to you. Anyways, all I'm saying is Barney Stinson, that guy's awesome. Now, for the humans, or men, the race of men, end up going through 6 generations after Beor. Wow. In total, it's 455 years that have passed since the arrival of Fingolfin in Beleriand. So, this is the long peace. Many elves are born during this time, much has changed, and you have, of course, the fields of Ardgalan, which will soon see a change. Now, Morgoth decides to send forth great rivers of flame, that is to say, lava. And this is a great, looking at it tactically and strategically, this is a great first move. Because lava's hard to fight against. He sends that down, then he unleashes his Balrogs and his orcs. So, what he's doing is essentially causing a volcanic eruption. And what this does is it's a great defensive move as it allows him to open up the gates of Angband and release all the ungodly beasts therein, even as it's a great offensive move and it helps further break the siege. So, I've seen a lot of people criticize Morgoth on a strategic and tactical level. And the thing is, it has to be said that he's actually very clever and very brilliant. Now, naturally, he's mostly wanting to break things and destroy things. But the weird thing is, in my opinion, at no point does he overestimate himself and underestimate his enemies quite on the same level as, say, Sauron does in the Third Age. Sauron has about 1 million chances to stop the Fellowship, but chooses not to because he's slothful. I know it's really, well, he doesn't think anyone would destroy the ring. He's sloth, the indolent. He's like, yeah, but would they really? Oh, wait, they would! That's really him being indolent. He doesn't actually want to do anything, so he doesn't do anything. He wants to take over the world, but he doesn't actually want to put in the effort. So, really, Sauron defeats Sauron. And that's ultimately his undoing. I'm going to make the comparison. Sauron, even with Numenor, doesn't really want to do anything. He wants Ar-Pharazôn to do the destroying of Numenor in a way himself. And this is really an interesting theme that he interweaves into Sauron, in contrast to Morgoth. Morgoth is the workaholic. He's the go-getter. He's the all-American supervillain, I guess you could say, or god of evil. Sauron, he's still living in Dad's basement and just dreaming someday of actually amounting to something, I mean. Yeah, someone as well. But, yeah, one of them will never make CEO. The other definitely already has and already crashed the company. I'm joking. But in all seriousness, this strategic move is brilliant. Glaurung, of course, is unleashed. A little, well, he ends up showing himself to be quite the force to be reckoned with, and is a little dangerous for his enemies. Now, he's called Glaurung the Golden, and the father of dragons. And he comes out and leads the charge with his fiery breath, so that between the lava, the Balrogs, and the fire drake that are breathing fire on everyone, this is called Dagor Bragollach, the Battle of Sudden Flame. And Ardgallan is utterly destroyed and blackened, and becomes Anfauglith, the gasping dust. Anfauglith, right. Now, as an after effect of the siege being broken, many elves flee to Doriath, and this strengthens the kingdom of Thingol. And thankfully, evil cannot enter Doriath because of Melion's girdle. That said, the sons of Fingolfin bear the heaviest brunt of the assault. Agnor and Angrod are slain. A shame Angrod died. And beside them falls Bregalis, lord of the house of Beor. And, of course, the brother of Bregalis, Barahir, ends up fighting further westward, near the pass of Sirion. Now, near there, Finrod Felagund, of course, tries to hasten south, and is cut off from his people and surrounded. I'm going to propose that strategically this is obviously an attempt to kill the king of Nargothrond, and that there was a purposeful attempt to encircle him, and that Finrod fell into the trap. And we're not given the name of the commander, but whoever commanded that branch of the army obviously did a great job. But we probably have to credit it to Morgoth and him coordinating his troops really well. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. But Finrod Felagund very nearly dies, but the bravery of Barahir and his men, rescues Felagund. And, of course, Barahir would end up being given a ring by Felagund, who vows to come to his aid should he ever need it. Now, real quick, Andreth was a relative of Barahir. So, I believe this is her nephew. So, her house is coming to the rescue of Finrod. Finrod may have backed up his brother who dishonored and disgraced Andreth, but obviously her house are showing quite a bit of honor here, despite the dishonor that was done to them. So here we have another example of the relationship between the two houses, and it's kind of deepening. And it's very interesting how it's managed to survive and strengthen. Now, naturally, Barahir flees back to Dorthonion, where he becomes Lord. And we then get, the reveal that the reason Fingolfin and Fingon could not come to the rescue of the sons of Finarfin is they're driven back, and they lose a lot of men. And, well, I guess I should word it as, they lose a lot of the Noldor elves in this assault. And Ered Wethrin is taken. Now, naturally, before the walls of Ethel Sirion, Hador, the golden-haired, ends up defending the rear guard of Fingolfin, and him and his son Gundor are pierced by arrows, and they end up mourned by the elves. Galdor the Tall ends up taking over the lordship of his father. Just an interesting aside. Now, the sons of Feanor, the Feanorians, things don't go well for them either. They're basically left without land in a lot of cases. Curufin and Celegorm are driven back and seek refuge in Nargothrond, where they're going to just cause nothing but trouble and basically try to almost bring down the kingdom and try to usurp the crown of Finrod Felagund. Because it's the thing to do when someone gives you, room and board for free. I think there's an English term for that. What is it? Ingrates. Yeah, they're ingrates. I'm harsh with them because, well...
You need to be harsh against them.
Yeah. For which they were thoroughly punished by their father. I'm joking. I had to do that nod to Oversimplified. I love Oversimplified. He's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, man. Sorry. I've been watching too many of those videos. Anyways. Now, meanwhile, Maethros, who was definitely more than average height for the time. Come on, he's known as the Tall. Ends up, after the Pass of Anglin is taken, retaking it. Like, Maethros just proves himself a total badass. And Maethros, however, ends up, despite his heroics, finding that it's for nothing because, well, Morgoth's forces just go around him. Oops. That's a problem. Not his fault. Of course, a great deal of land is lost because Meglar's Gap is taken. And all the lands between the arms of Gelion are put to the sword. And the fortress near Mount Rerir and Thargelion are ravaged. The lands of Caranthir are lost. And the Lake Helivorn is defiled. So, yeah, not a great time for anyone. Naturally, Amrad and Amras retreat and end up establishing themselves on Amon Arab and maintain a watch and some strength, and were to form an alliance with some of the Green Elves, with, the orcs not coming near into Osiriand. So not all is lost. Thankfully, the twins are there to save the day, but man, oh man, this was a big defeat. This is a shattering defeat. And it's at this point that Fingolfin reveals that actually he's always been the most powerful member of his house. Now, remember what I said. The most brilliant elf in terms of intellect was probably Feanor. But as a warrior, he was subpar. But Fingolfin is the greatest warrior of his house and the greatest king. And the thing is, okay, he has the wisdom of Finarfin, to an extent the brains of Feanor, and he has, of course, the loyalty of his father, but he has more than that. He has the power of a Valar, it's said, or at least his eyes shine like the eyes of a Valar's. Let me clarify myself there. I'd argue he's probably on par with more than a few Maiar, and honestly, if you were to stack him up in a fight against Gandalf the White, I think he'd curb stomp Gandalf. The thing is, I don't want to say he unleashes a limit breaker, but it's far greater than that. It's more like the morphed form of Terra, where he's just like, screw it. But what he does has me thinking, maybe to an extent the army was kind of holding him back. Like, he didn't unleash his full power, so to speak, because, it's kind of like Bui's armor from Yu Yu Hakusho. The armor was not to protect him, but his enemies from him. Because it was a container for his power. Fingolfin seems to have contained his abilities as a warrior, and mostly stuck to defense, defending those he loved, defending others, and was always reluctant to draw his sword. But now that he thinks his people have lost, he kind of unleashes himself. And for one thing, we'll just quickly mention as an aside that, let me check my notes, his horse is Rockeller, and of course, real quick, his sword is Ringil. And he does the unthinkable. Something that, honestly, no one in the history of Middle-earth, before or after, that is not Tolkast, ever think of doing. He rides up to the gates, he unleashes his war horn and smites the gates and calls out to the master of slaves, Morgoth, and calls him Craven and master of slaves. And apparently does kind of scare Morgoth, who's kind of like, I think he's mad. But the problem for Morgoth is most of his servants then turn to him and go, well, boss, are you going to accept the challenge? Morgoth doesn't want to. But does he have much choice?
No.
And I don't think Fingolfin's going to leave. He's basically going to... Because if Morgoth doesn't head out there, Fingolfin's going to use the law and become a squatter. And, then Morgoth's really screwed. I'm joking, but in all seriousness...
And it doesn't matter if he sends his troops in.
Because Fingolfin's just going to slaughter them all.
Exactly.
I don't know if they could even tire him out. Like, I don't even... Like, it's like the whole Piccolo thing from Dragon Ball. Even at, 1% of his power, he could kill the entire Z Senshi. At the end of Dragon Ball. He could kill them all. It's only Goku who's a challenge to him. That's basically, I think, the argument here. Like, Fingolfin's so ramped up, and, okay, you could send out your entire army, but the army is scared. They don't want to fight. They're not going to listen. So in this situation, they're expecting their commander to actually go out there and basically be a man. So even if they could overwhelm Fingolfin, entertaining the idea, it is possible they could tire him out and eventually win. But they don't want to. They're not going to. They're scared. And we have to note that Fingolfin races past all the armies who don't put up a fight. Glaurung doesn't even try to charge him. He's like, nope, I'm staying away. So it's heavily implied everybody's like, no, we're not touching that guy. He's peeved. But then the unthinkable happens. Morgoth steps out. Yes, he's goaded into action. But he does step out. His warhammer Grond in hand. Now, we got to bear in mind, he is extremely powerful. Morgoth is the mightiest of the of the Ainur, we should say. Or he was once. And he ends up hurling, it said, Grond. And wherever... Okay, I'm just going to read it directly. Then Morgoth hurled aloft Grond, the hammer of the underworld, and swung it down like a bolt of thunder. But Fingolfin sprang aside, and Grond rent a mighty pit in the earth, when smoke and fire darted. Many times Morgoth essayed to smite him, and each time Fingolfin leaped away, as a lightning shoots from under a dark cloud. and he wounded Morgoth with 7 wounds. And 7 times Morgoth gave a cry of anguish. Wow. And apparently his cries echoed in the Northlands. Wow. The trouble is, though, mighty as he is, Fingolfin cannot keep this up forever. And of course, Morgoth hits him with his shield. And thrice he crushes Fingolfin to his knees. And 3 times Fingolfin gets back up. Like, I can't help but think, well, right there, Fingolfin must be like Rocky, where it's not how hard you hit, but how hard you can take a hit and keep getting back up. Well, he's taking hits from the literal devil and getting back up every time. Actually, in hindsight, I wonder if maybe, I forget the guy's name from the 6th movie, if maybe Morgoth's kind of looking at Fingolfin in the same way as that guy did when, after he hammered Rocky down and Rocky just got back up. I think Morgoth might be. Like, but oh man. This next part is also awesome. But the earth was all rent and pitted about him, and he stumbled and fell backward before the feet of Morgoth. And Morgoth set his left foot upon his neck, and the weight of it was like a fallen hill. Yet with his last and desperate stroke, Fingolfin hewed the foot with Ringil, and the blood gushed forth, black and smoking, and filled the pits of Grond. Wow! Enough blood flowed out, filled the pits he made. So each of these pits are deep enough in the earth for smoke to come out. And then there's black blood that fills them. Wow. And we got to bear in mind, he hewed the foot. So he chopped the foot off. Or at least a good chunk of it off. Youch.
Morgoth the Stumpy.
Good name. More like Morgoth the Lame. Because, well, how do I put it? Actually, I'll use Tolkien's words here. Morgoth went ever halt of 1 foot after that day, and the pain of his wounds could not be healed, and his face was the scar that Thorondor made. Because, of course, after the chopping off of his foot, the orcs make no boast of the duel, because, you know, their boss was humiliated publicly. They probably didn't think it was possible, but he did not come out of this fight exactly the victor. He can't step out anymore. He can't even freaking walk properly. He came out kind of more wounded. And technically, if the Valar really wanted to be jerks to Morgoth, they could have just said, "Oh, it's nice that you slew Fingolfin. Reincarnated!" And how do you think that would have gone down? Had he just gotten back up in a different body, same power level, same everything, he's still the son of Finwë, just comes right back. That would have just been, like, honestly, that probably would have said, like, that would mean that Morgoth lost the fight had that happened. But I don't think they could just snap their fingers and wiggle their noses and revive Fingolfin. For one thing, he's way too powerful. Now, we got to bear in mind, they powered up Glorfindel to the level of a Maiar. But Glorfindel before was not of the same level as a Maiar. He kind of was, but not entirely. They had to power him up. Fingolfin was not powered up and already more powerful than most Maiar. So obviously, had they done the same to him, oh boy. But I don't know, like, I got the fan theory that one major reason why Dagorath is a major victory is Fingolfin is at last revived and powered up like Glorfindel is, which would probably bring him up to the level of a Valar almost. And that's just my fan theory, because I actually think Tolkien missed out on a great epic duel. Revive Sauron to his full power, and revive Fingolfin, and the two fight in Dagorath. Of course, Fingolfin would win, but
That goes without saying.
But it'd be epic. Yeah, I'm a Fingolfin geek. Sue me. Anyone who knows me knows he's probably my favorite character in this Legendarium. Well,
For good reason.
him and maybe Eowyn. And I guess Theoden. No, Eowyn and Theoden are tied in second place. Fingolfin for the win. And naturally, Thorondor, the Eagle King, comes along. Because Morgoth wants to toss the corpse of Fingolfin and basically let the wolves tear it up. He doesn't have any respect for Fingolfin. Thorondor, though, is not having it, because Manway's not having it. Thorondor attacks Morgoth's face, scars him, and then carries off the body, because it's the thing to do. Of course, the body is brought to Gondolin, where Turgon builds a high cairn for his father, and yeah, Fingolfin rests until Turgon the Failure screws up and Gondolin falls. At which point, now this is the sad thing: no orc dared ever after pass over the mount of Fingolfin or draw nigh his tomb until the doom of Gondolin. So apparently the tomb is desecrated, from what it's implied. Thanks, Turgon. Couldn't even frickin' hold at least that part. Like, couldn't even hold Gondolin for his dad's sake. Then again, he was supposed to abandon it. Why not abandon Gondolin and I know it sounds disrespectful, but carry away the ashes of his father or something and rebury him elsewhere? But, you know, Turgon's got to fail. I don't like Turgon. I don't know if I said that yet. I just have no respect for him. Because Turgon has no respect for Turgon. I'm joking. Now, of course, that's pretty much it. Fingon becomes the next king, High King of the Noldor. But Fingon ends up proving little more than a front man for Maethros, who really rules through him. But, yeah. Nargothrond is somewhat strengthened by the Fëanorian backup that takes residence there. But on the other hand, Curufin and Celegorum prove more a nuisance than anything. But anyways, what did you think of this part of this chapter?
Awesome. I can see why you really like it.
Yeah, what did you think of how Fingolfin fared against Morgoth?
The fact that the only reason Morgoth won was because the Fingolfin was essentially
Tired.
and with mortal, so to speak, weakness.
Yeah.
Because
But imagine if he was powered up like Glorfindel is in Lord of the Rings. He'd have won. So, like I said, I don't think the Valar can just grant him superpowers and just throw him back out there. I have the theory he's too powerful for them to just do that. They could do it, but it's going to take very, very, very long to do that. So my fan theory is Fingolfin is reincarnated around Dagor-Dagorath. And that's when he's going to come back wielding Ringil. But we know of one figure who could just auto-do everything. Eru Iluvatar. But Iluvatar is not going to just intervene directly. It's not his job. He has to let people decide for themselves which way it'll go and whatnot. And there's a lot of complex theological ideas involving Eru and why he can't just do everything himself. Actually, the very idea of him interceding, going and correcting every evil himself is preposterous. Because it's the nature of the world that we live in a fallen world. And the only way to cleanse it, so to speak, in traditional Catholicism is to end it. And the thing is, you can either end it or have a sacrifice. Like, in traditional Catholicism, you had the first sacrifice, which was right before Noah, where, the world is flooded, and God then grants the rainbow to the world and promises Noah never to do that again. He's never going to sacrifice humanity again. The second sacrifice, and what was supposed to be the last one, was Jesus, aka God, who took mortal flame and sacrificed himself to himself. And then, the idea in the book of Revelations is essentially that the next sacrifice, Satan's basically going to try to wreck the world. So he ends up sacrificed and utterly destroyed. That's the basic idea. So that you got to bear in mind, in Catholicism, everything comes in 3s and 4s. So, yeah, there has to be 3 sacrifices. First is humanity, then it's God, then it's the evil that's tainted the world. And then the world will end, but the world will be reborn. This is the idea behind traditional Catholic thought. This is how you cleanse the fallenness of the world. A lot of the fallenness and evil was cleansed from the world after Noah. But with a flood. Then the next time it was really cleansed was with Jesus. And then the next time, will be the cleansing of all evil from the world when it reaches its peak. That's the whole idea. Now, I'm not saying this to convert people. I'm just saying this is the theology and the basic idea. The idea that Tolkien has in his Legendarium is that basically Eru is God. And the thing is, Eru is unable to, he's directly intervening with these sacrifices, but he's not able to, just wiggle his nose and alter everything. That would remove the free will aspect. He has to respect that. And the thing is, yes, there's free will. The idea in Catholicism is God knows what choice you're going to make, but, there's the hope that you'll make the right choice every time, and you'll find your way to his embrace. And, when you go home to daddy, he'll be, you're the, the prodigal son. His hope is he'll be there to catch you and hold you. And the touching aspect about that parable is that the idea is the father, remember, he weeps when he receives his son. So the idea is God breaks down crying because he's so happy that you've chose him in goodness over evil. So this is very much the kind of ideas that I think Tolkien was weighing with and going with. And we got to bear in mind that this is why Eru can't just, and doesn't always intervene. Now, he kind of cheats by turning Gandalf the Grey into Gandalf the White. Doing the same to someone like, say, Fingolfin would be unleashing something way too powerful. So, would it corrupt Fingolfin in turn? I don't think it would. But on the other hand, you can't just cheat the system. You set up the rules, you have to play by them. That's the basic idea here. Eru has to play by the rules. The only time he really cheats is when Sauron actually overrigs the game with our Pharazôn and whatnot. And there, the Valar basically say, what do we do, Daddy? We can't do anything. Please fix it. And Eru says, fine, I'll fix it, darn kids. But that's where we got to bear in mind, in terms of sacrifice, arguably regarding Eru, the first sacrifice is the flood of Númenor, which is a very sinful island. And, next will be the sacrifice of Gandalf, who sacrifices himself for others, and so is resurrected. So, it's I think Tolkien's kind of he's kind of how do I put it? Juxtaposing his mythology with the stories in the Bible. The flood, the resurrection. It's a 1-for-1. And with Dagger Daggerath, the idea is Morgoth and Sauron are slain completely. It's a 1-for-1. That's the idea. Now, Fingolfin, arguably, is obviously the death of the heroic king. It's the death of Sigmundur from Norse mythology, or even Volsung. You could take your pick about which one, because arguably his heir, let's say, if we go with Volsung, his grandson is according to some interpretations, Gil-galad. According to others, it's Orodreth who's father of Gil-galad, and therefore Fingolfin. Well, I guess an uncle can be a bit of a paternal figure as well, so it can count. But on the other hand, he is very much a one-for-one for Volsung or Sigmundur. Fingon is good one-for-one for either Sigmundur or Sigurd. So you could go either way. You could juxtapose Fingolfin with Emperor Jimu when he dies in the Kojiki. You can have... Like, that's the thing. The death of the king archetypally is supposed to be a great tragedy and a great time of mourning. And it's interesting that the elves can't bring themselves to compose songs about the death of Fingolfin. They're so grief-stricken. There's not a single tribe of elves who can even think of composing a single poem or story. Now, the elves in Tolkien's Legendarium are very poetical people. They love poetry. They're like the Celts in that regard. The problem is, well, we've got to bear in mind, they composed poems about the fall of Gil-galad. They loved Gil-galad. He was a great king. They composed poetry about the deaths of every king, from what it's implied, even Finwë, but Fingolfin, they just can't do it. I think it's because Fingolfin was the greatest king.
And they get too emotional. And probably likely when one tries to start, they just break into tears.
I think that's the idea. So this is probably one of the greatest tragedies of the whole Legendarium. Because if there's someone who could have led the elves and men, and basically, I'm going to call it the First Alliance. The First Alliance against Morgoth, successfully, and probably to and averted a lot of the tragedies, it's probably Fingolfin. But the problem is, he flew into a rage, went up, and challenged Morgoth. On the other hand, Morgoth not being able to race around and do whatever he wants the way he used to, because he's now crippled, this is a major blow. He is now very much vulnerable, cannot retreat, cannot advance, he's stuck. So now, now the heirs of Fingolfin can regroup, recover, and re-strategize. And they can also fight the war without having to worry about Morgoth breaking the Leaguer of Angband and pouring out and just tearing them all apart.
They now have a leg up on him.
Good pun. But that's, I think, all we've got for you guys. I know this is only like 5 pages, but there's a lot that happens. Dagor Bracolak is a major battle. A lot happens. And weirdly, it's hard to determine who's the victor. I know a lot of YouTubers want to say it's Morgoth, but we got to bear in mind he's a god, and he's crippled.
It's a Pyrrhic victory.
Another victory like this, he's done for. Like, okay, he's proven Glaurung's a force to be reckoned with, but he's lost the respect of his orcs and his men. He's defeated and has to rely on viceroys like Gothmog, Glaurung, Fankill. He's got to rely on his lieutenants. He can't go out anymore. He can't fight. He can't interfere. He's really kind of stuck. And one gets the impression he's kind of wondering how he should retaliate. Like, he's like, okay, I'm a crippled. I can't move anymore. How do I fight this war now? And yet, he still has enough power and strength to inspire fear in the likes of Sauron and the rest. That said, on the opposite side, the heroic forces lost a lot of land. The fields of Argallan are completely lost. Fingolfin is dead. He was their greatest warrior. And Angrod and Agnor have fallen. Well, okay, Agnor's a bit of a victory because you don't have him mucking up alliances anymore. But Angrod is dead. That's not good. A lot of the Feanorians lost their realms. That's not good. So this is a really, really tight spot for both sides. And both going to need to kind of regroup and figure things out. And that's kind of what they do. So, yeah, this is a really fascinating 5 pages. It probably should have been its own chapter, arguably. I don't know why Christopher insisted on making it like part of a chapter. It could have been a chapter called The Fall of Fingolfin. But one almost hears, when reading this, The Ride of the Valkyries by Wagner. What do you think?
I agree.
Oh, okay.
It's not... It's an epic moment, one for the ages.
Probably one of the... Like, the thing is, there's a lot of... like, when people think of epic battles these days, they think of, like, Dragon Ball Z or Yu Yu Hakusho. That's the influence of anime. But I'm actually going to say that's not as epic as a mythological duel of this sort. Where, you know, the... it's not people jumping up into space or into the air and slugging each other. It's a simple sword fight. It's swashbuckling. But it's not like Zoro's flashing 12 slashes a minute sword. This is a much more brutal, rugged, muddied fight. And it's a lot more epic than all of those in a lot of ways. And I think Tolkien can describe fights very well and does a fantastic job here. This is a fight that feels like it's torn out of the Iliad. And trust me, that fight between Achilles and Hector is really good. If you want a good cinematic version, watch Troy. Great movie. Anyways, I think we've covered everything.
Yeah.
All right, so don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button to stay tuned for the next video. And also don't forget to check out our Substack, where we write many myriad things. We write lit analysis, film analysis, but most of all, mythic fiction in the style of, well, Lord of the Rings and Silmarillion, yet it's still kind of very different. Obviously, every writer is different. So we write a lot of interesting literature. And don't forget to also check out our book, Crown of Blood, which is out now. And both links will be in the description. So don't forget to check those out. And do take care. We're going to have the rest of this chapter out for you very soon.